What's going on, guys? My name is Christopher and welcome to It's Complicated, the show where I talk about and showcase wristwatches. So if you love watches like I do, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button, then click on the bell and you'll be all set. Today, we're going to be talking about 4 real shitters. Here we go. Now, I hear a lot of people talk about a lot of different watch brands being shitters. You know, whether it's an ETA movement, they're like, that's a shitter. Whether it's a Seiko and it's too mass produced or it's too cheap, that's a shitter. Personally, I love my Seiko SKX 007. Glad to have it in the collection. I love wearing it to work. It's a great piece. Certainly wouldn't consider that a shitter at all. And there are even some people that think that anything below, let's say, an Omega is a shitter. So there's a guy at work who knows I'm into watches, and he told me he had a few of them that he doesn't wear anymore. He doesn't even want them anymore. He'd just bring them in, let me look at them. So he brought them in and he said, hey, if you don't want them, just toss them in the trash. And I said, no, I'm not going to throw them away. You know, there's nothing great there, but I definitely wanted to make a video about it and tell you guys what I think shitters are. So Nick, thank you so much for the contribution to the channel. I appreciate it. Now let's have a look at these watches. So we're going to start with what I think is the nicest watch of Nick's collection. And that's not saying much because this isn't a great piece, especially by today's standard. It's not running. It's a Timex. It is a quartz. You can see the battery there. And these are pretty old. I mean, these are probably from early 80s, late 70s, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like this bracelet may have been gold plated at one point and now a lot of that is worn off. Probably something that Nick wore a long time, and I'm sure back in the 70s and early 80s this would have been a fine piece to be rocking. Not something that has held up to the test of time, if you know what I mean. See the acrylic crystal there, and there's plenty of scratches on it. You can see some, yeah, there's a good shot of it all scratched up. Pulling this piece out is pretty nasty. But, I mean, it works. I'm sure a battery in this and it would run fine unless there is some corrosion. Water resistance doesn't say how far it's water resistant to, but, you know, could probably get this wet doing the dishes and you wouldn't have to worry about it. All right, moving on to some of the worst stuff. Here is a watch by the brand Time. I'm not sure if this would have came with maybe a Time magazine. It kind of does look like it's that same font. I guess that is a possibility that this was some kind of promotional watch that had to do with Time, unless this is just a really off-brand by the name of Time. Just says stainless steel case back, Japan movement on the back. Nothing fancy there. And again, this expansion metal band. Probably one of the most offensive things about this watch. And the Timex as well. I just hate the expansion band. Just look at all the gunk that gets in the middle there. It's pretty disgusting. There's another shot of more gunk. This thing is pretty old too. It looks like it had some gold plating and the gold plating has worn off from here and here. Just not a great piece from Time. Here we go. Check this thing out. United States Postal Service Pittsburgh watch. I believe he got this for 10 years in the post office, maybe 20 years in the post office. Looks like he may have worn it until the battery stopped and then he didn't wear it anymore. I've managed to get the crown to spin, but I can't get it to pop out. It is really lodged in there. And this thing is just all pitted and gross. It has the Japan movement on the back. It has a leather band on it, but it is really nasty, thin, cheap leather. All the gold plating on the buckle has come off almost completely. And even the inside of the watch has started to age. And it's a pretty rough looking piece. But hey, this is vintage. This is vintage quartz. And man, it's pretty fucking ugly. And last, but certainly not least, is a Field & Stream brand Outdoor Adventures with a date complication. And best of all, this thing has a compass on it, which of course doesn't work at all because it's just a fixed piece of metal. There's nothing on here that turns or moves, so it's completely useless. Has the Field & Stream logo there. And Field & Stream, they're still making watches today. This is probably the most modern of the pieces we're looking at here today. It has a very bizarre, just Velcro band on it. It's not a NATO strap. This actually comes off. And then you would have to remove the spring bars to get this off totally. As you can see, this is also pretty old, pretty beat up. Bizarre how it's like a double Velcro system. It Velcros there for the back, and then it would also Velcro on your wrist. This is probably a 40 millimeter watch. This looks like it could have some decent lume on it. Definitely has the date function, and this one. And even though this is the most modern of the 4 watches we're looking at today, it's also, in my opinion, the most offensive, just because of that stationary compass on the bezel. So there you have it, folks. Those are 4 real shitters. Everything from the metal expansion bands, the super thin leather on that awful pitted U.S. Postal Service gift that was given to Nick. And let's not forget about that Field and Stream, the compass watch, which has 0 function. So let me know what you guys think. Which of the 4 is the worst one in your opinion? For me, it's probably a toss-up between the Field and Stream one and the Postal Service one. Now, I mentioned my SKX earlier. If you want to see me showcase that watch, you can do so here. And that wraps up another episode of It's Complicated. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, like this video, share it with all your friends, and I'll see you next time on another episode of It's Complicated.